order and call on our Vice Chair, Brad Turner, for the reading and approval of the minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I've had a chance to review the minutes, find them in order, and everything that we had asked for last meeting is happening this meeting, so I appreciate folks looking at that. And I make a motion for the minutes approval.
Second. Motion and second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. At this time, we will announce 3 vacancies on the Agricultural Advisory Board. This will include a farm woman, a farmer, and Commissioner Joe Frank Jernigan's position. We will also announce the county coroner vacancy. And at this time, I would like to call on Commissioner Robert Stevens for a presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I sent earlier today to Miss Vicki Taylor a list of my ideas, and I think it was on the iPad, but I also brought you a hard copy as well. So for the past year and a half, we've been going through a very unfortunate situation with one of our elected officials. And unfortunately, the county commission has no ability to handle that situation, even though we're the ones that have received tons of phone calls and visits and conversations about it. And so I've been thinking about what can we do, or what can we ask the state to do to help us with a situation like this that might happen in the future, and not only us, but any municipality or county across the state. And after my study, I have come up with 2 ideas that I think would allow a legislative body or the people in general to address the situation. So the first one would be to allow either the county commission or a city council to, by a 2/3 vote, suspend somebody from office who has been indicted with a felony. And during that period of time, that person would not receive their pay. And of course, if they plead guilty or if they are found guilty by the court, they would be out and they wouldn't get their back pay. If they're acquitted, then they would be reinstated into the office and get their back pay, which is very similar to how the current ouster system works. And the second proposal was to establish a procedure to have a recall election. Some states have that in their code that allow for a group of citizens to petition to recall any elected official. And they do that by collecting a certain percentage of signatures in a district or in a jurisdiction. The election commission or some group would then certify the signatures to see if they're valid, and if they are, there would be an election held within so many days to decide whether that person remains in office or if they're going to be removed. So those are both 2 ways that I believe we could handle situations like this that come up, and that would be very beneficial for legislative bodies and people all across the state. The issue that came up first was whether the state constitution allows for this type of thing to happen. And I gave you a copy of Article 7, Section 1 of the Tennessee Constitution. And at the end of the first paragraph, it says that any officer shall be removed for malfeasance or neglect of duty as prescribed by the General Assembly. I do think that under the Constitution, the General Assembly can change the law to allow a legislative body to suspend somebody who has been indicted with a felony charge, and that would come under the malfeasance. I think the Constitution grants the legislature the ability to make rules for that, and I do believe that they could do that pretty quickly and easily. The recall procedure is not in the Constitution, and for that to happen, my opinion was that the legislature would have to start the process of amending the state constitution so that they could establish the law for a recall procedure, and that'll take 5 or 6 years at a minimum to get that done. But I do think we need to get the ball rolling on that, because that would be a great tool to have in our toolbox.
So proposal 1 would just be an act of the legislature, and then proposal 2, which there could be both, would be an amendment to the Constitution.
Correct.
Which would be correct. And so your proposal is to send these ideas to our delegation?
Correct, and ask them to sponsor those and to wholeheartedly support those and try to pass them into law so that legislative bodies across the state would have recourse or some kind of option to deal with situations like this that arise, and they won't be stuck in the middle of a year-long saga with controversy and drama and so forth like this, and not be able to have integrity in the officials' responsibilities. So.
Okay, we have 2 proposals before us. Invite any questions or comments, or
Any input from County Attorney Josh?
Not that would be different than what Commissioner Stevens just said. We did have some exchanges, and really just with an eye toward whether or not it looked like the Constitution would allow the General Assembly to create methods for removal of elected officials, and I agree with him. Article 7, Section 1 seems to say that that is vested in the General Assembly. So I would think whether they'll do it or not, obviously, is a different question, but it does look like they would have the authority to create different methodologies for removing officials.
I think this is a topic that we've been talking about, thinking about for a good long while. So it's good to continue to talk about it. I would maybe put it in the form of a motion, Robert, that we vote on this, and if it receives an affirmative vote, pass it on to the full county commission, and then we can pass it on to our legislative delegation to handle from that perspective. Does that sound?
Sounds good to me. I was actually going to make the motion, but I'll second yours.
I'll so move then.
Okay. Have a motion and a second. Anything else?
Just one quick question. Assuming this would get done quickly, could you retroactively go back, like in the case of our situation? Would that be something we could immediately move forward, or does it not affect current office holders?
Current office holders? Oh, I think it probably could affect
Okay,
current
I just
office
didn't know.
holders.
Okay,
Yes, I think it could do that.
Okay.
Yes.
good.
question.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
what I was looking for. Okay.
So proposal number 2 would just be to ask one of our legislators or multiple legislators to take a look at what would constitute something that would basically be a recall.
Correct. And I looked at several different states, and they all have different procedures and percentages and number of days. And I got thinking, the more specific we make this and putting in numbers, we want you to do it this way, and we don't want you to do it that way, they're going to be less likely to pass it. If we just send the concept up there to them, they can work out any details that they choose.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, all in favor of this, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Commissioner Stevens.
I wanted to ask, I didn't want to take away from that discussion, and I know Joe's got something we want to talk about too, but when we were looking at this in the Ethics Committee, we were looking at different state laws that are out there, and according to which state law your finances are under, had we been under, was it 57? I don't really recall. Or maybe Josh.
We're not under one, we have a private act.
Exactly, but had we been under
Oh, okay.
57, we would have been able to take care of this problem. And I know that we were looking at this and we didn't really want to change the way our accounting works, but we were of the opinion that we could change some of the stipulations on if this person does X, then this could be the results. The same results you would get under the other accounting systems. So that's something we might pursue too if we don't have any luck from this. But that's something I wish that we'd have went ahead and looked at anyway. It's something legislation definitely could do because they're the ones that put that out there. So I can bring some information on that when we get the opportunity if y'all want to look at it. If this doesn't bear fruit.
Well, I think that generally speaking, if they were to pass this, it'll be the spring, and then usually new laws take effect at the first of the year, which is July maybe. So our issues may be solved by that time, hopefully.
How long would it take to amend the state constitution? Is there a time frame there?
I don't know. It would take, I
Three or
expect it would
four.
take a while
Okay.
to pull
It
that
has to
off.
pass
Right,
2
twice,
successive general assemblies, and then it has to be approved by a majority of voters in the next governor's election. So it'll take 5 or 6 years at a minimum,
Yeah.
probably.
That's even if we do not have a constitutional convention.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I would like to call Commissioner Joe Gurley. Come to the table, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, fellow commissioners. We all know the problem that we've been facing, and I got to thinking several months ago about the root cause of the problem. I first begun working at the sheriff's office in 1979. There's a picture on the wall at the sheriff's office in '78. It has 23 employees on it. It had not changed much in the following year. We're up to 500 plus full and part-time employees right now. So the situation as far as management requirements and so on is much different than what it was 35 years ago. So I got to looking at the requirements, and right now TCA requires a sheriff or someone desiring to be sheriff, either by appointment or election, to have 3 years of post-certified experience, as well as meeting certain other requirements that any deputy would be required to meet in TCA 8-8. I am proposing to, I'm throwing it out for consideration by this body to pass a private act for Rutherford County, which would add to those current requirements. What I'm proposing, well, first of all, I did a survey. I looked at the top 11 counties population-wise. Of course, we know that Davidson County, being a metro form of government, the sheriff is not the chief law enforcement officer, but even including him, 9 out of the 11 current sheriffs in the top 11 counties have 30 plus years of experience and a master's or law degree. Quite a bit different than the situation of our elected sheriff.
Is that a requirement, or they just have it?
They just have it.
Okay, gotcha.
No, it's just, they picked the right pool, from the right pool. So what I'm proposing, I think all of you have it on your iPads. I'm proposing to add 15 years of combined post-secondary education and experience. I don't want to, as some of you may know, especially Commissioner Johnson here, law enforcement officers during the course of their career have an opportunity to attend a lot of training and so on that's very relevant to the duties that they exercise. And while I firmly believe it's good to get a college education and then go on and get advanced degrees if possible, I don't want to exclude someone who chose not to do that or who did not have the opportunity to do that. Therefore, I'm proposing an additional 15 years, which would mean that that person running for sheriff, either for election or appointment, would have to have 18 years total of combined post-secondary education and service as a post-commissioned officer. And I'm defining experience as meaning service as a post-certified law enforcement officer, a state law enforcement officer, a federal law enforcement officer with training equivalent to or better than that required by the post-commission. And then I define examples of post-secondary education. Also leave that, such things such as the FBI National Academy, Northwestern's another one that comes to my mind. Leave that additional training up to the post-commission. They set the training requirements right now, leave that up to them. Anything else that they might approve as satisfactory post-secondary education would be included. So a person would have a total, they must have 3 years by current law of post-certified experience. So this would add 15 years of experience or education. In other words, they might have a college degree and 11 more years of experience. They might have a college, a bachelor's degree and a law degree and, X number of years experience added to that. But I think this is flexible. It doesn't exclude limited to exclusively to post-secondary education nor experience, but it, I think, would have eliminated, and this does not include time served as a jailer. This is post-certified experience. Like I said, in doing a survey of the top 11 counties, there's some impressive sheriffs out there in terms of their experience in education. And I think, you know, not knowing what to do, not knowing how to manage is really setting someone up for disaster. And you know, we've got dozens of qualified potential candidates in this county that would meet these requirements. Dozens, literally. So you know, it will be a private act. I've talked to executive director of TSA. They kind of want to keep a hands off on it right now. But I do believe that the lack of education and experience was a contributing factor in the situation that we're in right now, and that this would go a long way. We're just not the little county that we were 35 years ago, and we, you know, any company of 500 people would be looking at some fairly impressive credentials for their top manager, CEO, president, or whatever they chose to title that position. I'm not a lawyer, so it probably needs to go to our attorney and get put in the proper format. But I'm putting it before you to think about and act on if you so desire. And of course, it'll go from here to full commission.
Commissioner Pete?
Well, I concur that, you know, that position is an administrative position more so than hands-on out on the street, collaring criminals. You know, you've got a multi-million-dollar budget that you're overseeing. You've got decisions that will put us in lawsuits or take us out of lawsuits, and having a good knowledge of that make a world of difference. So I concur with making it more stringent to hold this office. If you look at the road board superintendents, they've come up with a lot more stringent requirements for that position. You know, so this is not unprecedented as far as making changes in an elected position. But just out of curiosity, and maybe you looked at this, out of the last election, you know, we had, let's see, and I don't recall all the names there, but of the couple that ran, do you think that all of the people that ran, I know there were 2 ex-deputies from the sheriff's department.
I think that
Mr.
just
Arbor.
about everyone that ran in the last election met the requirements that we're putting
That
down
you're
here,
proposing now.
that I'm proposing now.
That was my question, is how they would
I mean,
stack up.
And some of them were even greater.
many of them were greater. You know, we're talking about a person normally would go to work as a deputy at 21. And if they go to work at 21, that means they'll only be 39. You'd have 18 years of experience or education, or combined experience in education. Only be 39 years old. A lot of life yet to go. But hopefully by that time, they will have gained experience in supervision. Most people who haven't gained that experience don't want to be in that type of position. Most of them, but I'm open to ideas. I encourage y'all to talk about it and discuss it. I'm just bringing it before you. I do believe that it's something that's needed. I did talk to, I think, you know, ultimately there needs to be graduated requirements to run for sheriff across the state. But approaching it from a statewide thing is a very difficult situation, I've been told. And so I'm looking to do something in Rutherford County, being one of the largest counties. I don't know, are we teetering on 4 and 5?
Well, we're number 5 in population.
Number
We
5
will-
in
We will be number
population.
4 in 15
So-
years, 10 to 15 years.
We'll knock Hamilton County out.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, you know, we're up there in the top 5 of the 95. So ultimately, but I think it will be maybe 10 to 15 years before this gets brought up statewide. But I think the desired thing would be in counties, a tiered requirement in counties. I mean, let's face it, in a county that only has 6,000 or 7,000 people, they don't have as big a pool. Like I said, I think you'd come up with 30 or 40 people immediately that met the proposed requirement, if they so desired to run for sheriff.
Commissioner Stevens?
I wanted to ask a question for Mr. McCrary. Can we adopt a private act that supersedes the requirements in the general law?
All right, that's a good question. Would you rather me come up there?
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Gurley and I have had some conversation on this, and it's, I don't know for sure that I know the answer exactly how this would go down in Nashville if it went forward. But to respond to your question, I think ordinarily you see a private act speak in an area where the general law has not spoken. So using a private act to plug in some kind of gap like that in the generic sense. Having said that, there are an awful lot of private acts out there, and I can't say that all of them fit neatly into that category. Some of them do seem to speak in areas where there's general law out there. I think the question here would be, are we adding requirements or qualifications, or are we superseding requirements or qualifications? So I do think it's probably problematic if you couch it in terms of the state legislature, who under Article 7, Section 1, which we just looked at, is charged with creating the qualifications for elected officers, including the sheriff. So they've done that, they've created all these qualifications. If we were just bumping one of those off, that to me would be superseding something the General Assembly had done, and that very well may be questionable. But I think what Mr. Gurley's trying to do is not so much bump one of these off, but add to them,
Strictly additional.
which might be slightly different. You know, technically, instead of trying to supersede general law, he's trying to create additional qualifications that would apply in Rutherford County. It's less clear to me that that would be problematic. It might fly.
I just wonder if you want to move forward with this, if it wouldn't be better to amend the general law and say that 3 years except in Rutherford County where you need so many years.
Right. And of course, the easy answer might be that from the legal perspective, again, because the General Assembly is the one charged with the ability to create the qualifications, to have the General Assembly just amend the qualifications wholesale. I think I don't mean to speak for you, Mr. Gurley, but we've had some conversation. I know part of his thinking is that may be such a Herculean task
Yes.
that he cannot achieve it.
I've
And
been-
so he's being thoughtful about what other alternatives.
I've been
exist.
told that having the 3 years requirement of post-certification experience as a post-certified officer was a Herculean effort, and that to apply the time it's not going to happen readily across the state, even though it should. So I looked at doing something, not touching the current requirements for sheriff, but as Josh said, adding to that requirement for this county. Now, exactly how that plays, like I said, I don't pretend to be an attorney. I think that needs further study. I think sometimes you have to put things out and let it be debated, and that, you know, it may get to the, if it got to the legislature, it might get debated down. There's no guarantee, but if we don't put it out there, then it never will have an opportunity to be voted up, is kind of my way of thinking. Like I said, I'm just bringing it to the body. It's something I've been thinking about, and really feel a need that there's a need there to have better requirements, but
How long,
Let me-
he had his hand up, if you don't mind, Commissioner Johnson.
The question I have is, the present requirements now is, anybody to qualify has to be post-certified now, even to get on the ballot.
3 years,
Oh, they have to be post-certified. period.
post-certified.
Or anybody that is appointed by the legislative body
Right.
has to be post-certified.
Requirements are the same for appointment.
Right now,
and election.
okay, now that's been amended because at one time, you didn't have to be post-certified, but you had a grace period that if you did not qualify for post-commission within your 4-year period, your salary was reduced, and then at the end of that time, you could not qualify to run for re-election. But now this would give a buffer to allow someone to qualify for post-commission without having a present post-commission, correct, Joe?
No, this will not change anything.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, if you had 15 years law enforcement experience, and you were post-certified at that time, and you had this additional education, you could qualify to run.
3 of those years would be required per, you have 102 and A and B, or,
Yeah, I do.
but that requirement, I remember that. It wasn't but a few years ago, 10 years or so ago, that I could be appointed sheriff and then have,
Then you could qualify
And
later
Is it
on.
what you're looking
qualify.
at?
yeah.
It's 9. Sub 9 is the one that's got the post-qualification language.
Yeah. Yeah, 3 years full-time experience as a post-commissioned certified law enforcement officer.
Okay. Now, the way I understand it is, if a law enforcement officer retires or gets out of law enforcement and everything, they lose their post-certification within 5 years unless they are employed in law enforcement with the city or county municipality.
They
Is that
would,
right?
they would have to go back and
They would have
do
to go back
something and get
okay.
that certification, which there are mechanisms that
Right.
you well know to do that. And-
All right.
But that's 5 years, right? They've got 5 years. to
Yeah,
do that.
They've
yeah,
got 5
they
years
would
to
have
do
been
that.
out of law enforcement for 5
5
years.
years.
So that's a person, say a person wanting to run for sheriff and they're out of law enforcement for 5 years, decided then they would have to go back and address that. And there's some quick ways with that kind of experience to,
Let me just, this 15 years, I'm struggling to figure out in my head what 15 years is like. If I were a young person and I attended MTSU and got a degree in criminal justice, and I'm 23 years old, that's 4 years. Is that what you'd be saying?
well, yeah, if they graduated at age 22, that would be 4 years of experience of post-secondary education if they could count toward that. Then they started working, they would need, first of all, in order to run period, they'd have to have that 3 years of commission certified law enforcement officer experience. And then 4, they would need 11 more years of law enforcement experience, or go back and get a master's or a law degree or something. So they would, you know,
That's what I'm kind of struggling with. It seems to be that there could be there could be someone who we're saying you probably don't qualify to run for sheriff, but you would probably qualify to run for the state senate, or you could probably qualify to run for governor, or you probably could qualify to run for even the president or
age
something like that.
35, yeah.
I'm struggling with that a little bit. What if a young person got a degree in criminal justice, served a 3-year hitch, and all of a sudden they've got 8 years, and some of those years were in some type of an admin type of position? Why should that person have to wait more and more and more years to be able to run for this office?
So they would be 25, and you're 3 years, they got 3 years as a law enforcement officer. And after, and yeah, right now, I don't know, what's the requirement for running for sheriff? Is there 20?
You mean age?
Age, is there an age?
I
I don't think there is. So that person had, that person, 25, so that person would be 25 and could run. They had 3 years. They got a degree in criminal justice. Forgetting this, they could run right now.
But under your proposal,
They could not, because they'd have to have additional experience.
that's what I'm struggling with. I don't know how much experience a person would require. That I think, just in my own mind, that's what I'm struggling with.
I'm not convinced that a 25-year-old person can run the sheriff's department. I guess it depends on the 25-year-old.
Commissioner Phillips, let me throw an example out that I think
But
what you're
typically-
kind of referring to. If you go to, say you get your degree in criminal justice and a minor in human relations, and get post-certified and you're a deputy for, say, 5 years, and then you go off, change careers, become an HR director, and then for several more years, with the sheriff's office being mainly administrative, that would be a perfect candidate to run for sheriff. But they couldn't, because they don't have 18 total years of education and post. They have, 5 years of post. They have 4 years, maybe 6 years of secondary, but they don't reach that 18. But they got tons of administrative experience.
That's the
Is
reason
that
you
what you
hire an
kinda-
administrative chief deputy.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying, but the 15 years bothers me. It bothers me as we're looking, we're going to be turning those of us,
We know how.
those of us, we're going to be turning things over to an entirely new breed, and that's not all bad.
And maybe this ought to be 10 years, I don't know. But I just think, it takes some time in any business. And that's kind of the way I looked at it. It takes some time in any business. I spent years in the telecom business, both with the state and outside the state. With 3 years of experience, I wasn't the person to manage a telecom company. So I don't know. I brought this to you guys to not necessarily asking for an action tonight.
If a person had 10 years, he was hired at 21 as a deputy and worked 10 years and decided he wanted to run for sheriff, would he be able to do it without a degree?
Without a degree?
Under this proposal.
Under this proposal, if he worked 10 years and had no degree, he would be 31. And if he started at 25, he would be, that's so he started as a deputy, say at 21, it was just the early age he's going to be able to carry a
Yeah, but he's asking if he wouldn't have the education requirement.
Not here, no, he would still lack a few years right here.
Had a high school degree, no college whatsoever, none.
And
But he had
10 years.
He had 10, 12 years of experience and wanted to run for sheriff. Could he do it?
Not under what we're proposing, you need 5 more years of experience.
Commissioner Pete?
Have you talked to any of the folks in the Tennessee Sheriff's Association? I know-
Yes.
I'd be interested on their take on.
Their take is that it will be difficult, that it was very difficult to get the 3 years in statewide, because we're not talking about, every county doesn't have a 500-person department. Some
Well, I
of them
understand
are
that.
back where we were 35 or 40 years ago.
Well, I understand that they're saying it's difficult to make change, but if they could make change,
Well, I think-
what would they
I
want for
think-
requirements?
I think I've been told it's not gonna happen.
Well, regardless of whether it would happen, what would they suggest would be a good time, or did they?
Well, I think, I can't speak for them, but just in discussions, what I said a little bit earlier, a graduated requirement and based on population. In other words, basically it would be graduated in terms of experience based on the size of the department, because department size is going to pretty much go along with population. In other words, the required responsibility, level of responsibility, and that right now, someone 25 years old with 3 years of post-certified who signed on at 22, got 3 years of post-certification certified experience as a deputy, could run for sheriff right now at 25. And whether he has the experience to manage that department, I think we've just seen that.
What's the
Mr. Johnson.
requirement for a road superintendent?
They have to show that they have X years of experience in road construction.
Do we know the number?
I think it's.
5 years?
I don't remember the number of years, but, you know, they definitely had to,
They've
they actually had to
increased-
come up with specific examples of roads that they had been instrumental in building.
All right, that's kind of along the line of what we're doing. We're to the 15 years of combined experience, but, you know, I definitely, I would hope, we've got a lot of men and women in the Rutherford County Sheriff's Department. We've got men and women with bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, law degrees. They're just not being utilized. And we have those people in Rutherford County. We have those people. So it's not a matter, and we have many others who've been to the FBI National Academy, who've been to Northwestern Command and Staff School. These are all college level type of training that they have gotten as a result of being a law enforcement officer. And we have those people. So there's a pool of people out there, large pool of people who would meet this requirement were it to be enacted, a large pool.
Commissioner Johnson?
Okay, this scenario, Colonel Jerry Scott retired. Okay, he had 25 years experience and as a post-certified officer.
Right.
He also is a graduate of Northwestern University.
Right.
Okay, that's the 9 months management school that he went
Right.
to. Okay. He is no longer in law enforcement. He's been retired 10, 12 years, I guess now.
Right.
Okay, and I'm sure he's not been in law enforcement, so therefore he does not have his post-certification at this time.
Right. But I believe there's a process.
Okay, now let me ask you something. Would this, with his 25 years as a post-certified officer, and even
Once
though
he goes back to post-commission and becomes recertified, yeah, he could run for sheriff.
he would have to go back to be post-certified?
Yeah,
Even with
anyone would have to, this does not supersede
Okay.
current law. He has to be a post-certified, he'd have to go back and get his post-credentials in order. That
Could he
should-
do it after he was elected?
Not the way I read current law. It says,
I think that
Your
was
modification,
rescinded
does it
yeah, I believe that,
from the Sheriff's Association. They're the powerful lobbying organization, and they got that passed 8 or 10 years ago.
So you have to be post certified even to run.
To run or be appointed.
Yeah.
But there
So
are
he-
ways
he
to go
won't-
back, and he can go back and apply, reapply and take there's some, I think you'll find that there's ways to, he can quickly become recertified.
Without going through all the
Without
8
going
weeks
back to
training or
school and
whatever.
all that, yeah. I'll do some digging, you can do some digging, but, yeah.
Okay, good discussion. Who else?
Yeah, I was just gonna try to wrap it up to say, is there any way, Josh, you could look at some of what you had just mentioned to make sure, you know, we're not chasing our tails here, this is something we can move forward with? And then to, number one, appreciate Commissioner Gurley having a passion about this and bringing this up, certainly with him on public safety, I certainly know where his heart's at. But number two, make sure we can actually do this before we spend, you know, several hours discussing this and then say, what do we do type stuff. 'Cause I don't want to put, you know, too much work into it if you come
Sure.
back and say, hey, there's really nothing you can do on it. But I certainly appreciate Joe bringing this forward, because if we can help 94 other counties stay out of some particular challenges that can be prevented, I certainly would like to do that.
Happy
This-
to. Do you want that brought back here in a
We'll
month?
just put
or
on on the agenda.
Yeah.
Is next month okay, or do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be good.
That'd be fine.
I agree with, thank you for bringing this up. My heartburn was the length of experience that you're requiring would probably disqualify, quote, some bright young minds. And I've got issues with that. And if I were just,
And I'm not opposed to taking 5 years off of this.
Sure.
That still would be a total of 13 years requirement. You know, I put this number in to get the discussion started.
right,
And if this body so desires to make that number 10 instead of 15, it will not grieve me.
and I'm just also thinking, what would the actual voters want to see as well, you know?
I
So
think the voters want to see a qualified pool of candidates.
I don't disagree, okay? I don't. But I'm also thinking that once again, there have to be some
I'm
some
well
way of-
acquainted with some very bright young people out there with, you know, I can think of one in particular that has a law degree and little bit more than 10 or 11 years of experience. Very, you know, and there's more than one, there's several out there. So yeah, maybe this needs to be back 10, I don't know, that's what I brought it to this body to
Sure.
discuss.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Mr.
Thank
Jordan.
you.
Anything
Appreciate
else?
the opportunity.
I just want to point out that this is a systemic problem with county government. It's not just the sheriff. The mayor does not even have to have a high school education. He does not have to have 1 year of experience in anything. The trustee doesn't. You name all of these other folks. The only two of us that are elected that has any requirement is the sheriff and the highway superintendent. I could not even get, a few of us could not even get our mayor's association to agree to put forward a requirement for a high school education. Just want to make that observation. This really is just, so you have the mayor, you have the trustee that's managing hundreds of millions of dollars, no high school education required, no experience required. It's just an indication of some of the problems that do occur in our county governments.
The way this thing is worded, Mayor Burgess, counties of population of would probably make that a little bit easier for some of the less populated counties to swallow though, right?
At least a high school education ought to be
It would
required.
only apply to Rutherford County.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't see why that won't be accepted in a general nature, and we
Right.
can't get our other elected officials to come along with that important, small, little, simple step.
What if the
And most
voters want an
every company out
uneducated,
there
ignorant
requires a
mayor?
high school.
They may have a lot of them. Oh, me.
Okay, who else?
I got one more question.
Okay.
Joe, you think it'd give the Sheriff's Association any heartburn to amount to anything? Because they are very
I've been-
close-knit.
I've been told that It will be taken a very close look at, but I don't want to get involved in it at this point in time. We'll wait till it gets to the deal, if it gets to the deal. And
But
before they,
they wouldn't have as much heartburn if it was not carte blanche and not in my backyard, basically. Is that what you're trying to say?
well, like I said, I've been told that anything in terms of what I was mentioning in terms of a tiered requirement and stuff like that, another 10 to 15 years probably at least down the road because it's taken a lot just to get the 3 years in there.
One other thing, Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
and I hesitate to bring this up because of all the what ifs, but tomorrow in Kentucky, there's, tomorrow in Nashville, I believe there's going to be a decision, possibly a decision made on the suspension of our current sheriff. If that happens, is there a way, Josh, you could get with Mr. Bobo and see where we as a commission go from there and maybe report back to this commission in an executive session or something next Thursday to see what we do? I think all of us are trying to figure that out. That the wording that I've seen several times says probably, but I think most of us really want to know where we go.
Understood.
If that happens and our sheriff is suspended tomorrow, what does that mean? What's our responsibility, if any, and where do we go? And I'd like for maybe, since we're using Mr. Bobo, for you two guys to kind of put your heads together and maybe get some kind of report to the commission next Thursday as to what we do, if anything. And it may be that, it status quo the way it is right now, and if that's the case, I think a lot of us would really want to know that.
Mr. Stevens?
Yeah, I wouldn't even want to wait till the next week. I think we need to have a special call meeting the next day and go ahead and elect the new sheriff to serve. Once the person is suspended, then the county commission becomes responsible for appointing someone to serve in the interim. And I think we need to do that right away so that we can begin the process of restoring integrity to the office.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
a couple of things. First of all, Josh's firm has a conflict of interest. They cannot enter these discussions with Mr. Bobo. Is that correct, Josh, more or less?
We've been out of it, yes, but I understood the question to be, could I make sure Mr. Bobo was in the loop? And I think through the mayor's office, that certainly can happen.
And secondly, that little piece of paper that Josh prepared for Mr. Johnson says, elected or appointed, these folks have to meet the same qualifications. So you're going to have to find a way to get applications or nominate people and then somehow determine if they have the qualifications appropriate to be sheriff before you can actually appoint them. So I don't know how much time or effort or what that process looks like. I mean, this is something steering and or just the commission needs to take a leadership role in doing that, or deciding how you want to vet these people or identify them or just stand up and nominate them. But somebody's going to have to confirm the qualifications are in place.
The post commission is the one that ultimately says whether they can be or not. They have to have their ducks in a row with the post commission.
I think the election commission would have to confirm that.
I understand, but you got
They have to go back.
you have to know that the applicants or the ones you're choosing to nominate or whatever, somebody has to go through that process before you can put them up for vote and choose one until you decide which ones actually meet the qualifications.
And I think when you have to announce it in 7 days before
No, there's no requirement. 7 days or anything.
to appoint,
There's no,
to get applications.
I don't know, you
It's all
can't
spelled
just,
out in a.
you just can't call a meeting and then
That's right.
say, we got X people that we want to nominate. Everybody can nominate one, all 21 of you can nominate somebody and you could vote on them, but it would be for naught unless this person has the proper qualifications.
If you look at
But,
A,
Josh, if I'm not mistaken, does that not stipulate in 802 there that you have to show proof to the election commission?
well.
And the election commission has to confirmed
Right.
before
So
they
if you
could even
look-
be nominated to the county commission, is that correct?
88102, 10, no, wait, I'm sorry. 88102B, there's too many subsections here. B3A talks about the requirement of getting an affidavit and having the post-certification commission verify that the person has met the qualifications as to the post component at least. If you look on down under sub D, it says, in the event of the person seeks election to the office of sheriff by the county legislative body to fill a vacancy in office, such verification shall be filed with the county clerk prior to the election.
So
It
election-
just says election
That
commission.
doesn't
No,
answer
election
your
commission's
question,
not in it.
with your original question of what you do or any of that. That'll be up to you all, and that can be addressed. As to the qualifications of a person that the county legislative body might appoint, 88102 does say that the qualifications apply whether by election or appointment. That's in sub A. And then it talks about, as I just read, filing that verification with the county clerk prior.
Is that
You
a
know,
form that they produce? What do they normally do when somebody's running for the office? Is there a form that they get from the post commission?
Yeah, there's some sort of
Is that
form
something
from
you can
them.
get?
I think it's normally, yeah, I think it must be based on this statute. It implies that the post commission has some kind of certification form, and that they would ordinarily file it with the election commission.
You have to file all kinds of
And if
forms,
you
your
don't
driver's
do it-
license and
Yeah.
everything else.
You have to also be certified by a Tennessee licensed healthcare provider qualified in the psychiatric or psychological field as being free from any impairment. They have to have some sort of actual examination by a psychiatrist or some a psychologist of some sort that certifies they don't have a problem mentally.
If they're currently in law enforcement and have that,
If they have one of those, and most of those haven't had the psychological examination necessarily.
But if, I think if you,
Anything else?
the way it reads, if you
that-
don't
I'm not sure,
leave your
I'm not sure I got an answer.
employer,
Well, I think that the mayor's going to give Ms. Bobo and
Okay, one question. Let's suppose there is a suspension tomorrow. Do you, the steering committee, want first opportunity to review what the process should be, or do you want to let us go straight to the commission with all of the what-ifs and how we should proceed?
It's everybody's problem. I think that
Say
everybody.
straight to
Just
the
go to the
commission.
commission.
Straight to the commission.
Okay, that's all right. I just want to,
yeah.
so,
I've just heard a lot of, this is what the statute says, and it's a little unclear. So, my question was, what do we do, if anything? And Mr. Bobo may tell us, you can't do anything.
well, you don't have to do anything, but you have the opportunity, if you so choose, to select an interim sheriff.
Is that, that's what I want to know.
Okay, I got you.
And do we need that in form of some kind of a motion for Mr. Bobo to report to the commission next, or can you just make that happen?
Well, if you want, let's suppose they don't do anything tomorrow.
Yeah.
Do you still want to have the executive session? We can have one.
If nothing happens, there's no need to have one, right?
More or less, I don't think so yet.
But if he's suspended, in my mind, he's no longer sheriff.
No later than
That's correct.
And
the commission meeting, we should have an executive session.
okay.
I think the thing that's controlling is 88102A, the very first sentence, after May 30th, 1997, to qualify for election or appointment to the office of sheriff, a person shall. Everything that's listed, all these other things, these are requirements that have to be prepared, have to be produced.
Your shall is mandatory, should is discretionary, correct?
It is.
It says shall,
Yeah.
so nothing is left out.
if that person though is a current post-certified officer or has been within a certain amount of time, as the statute dictates, then they're gonna meet those requirements.
All
without
they-
any problem.
All we have to do is get a certification
All they have to
from
do-
the post.
Right.
And we have to have the psychological examination.
But if they're only, probably only if they're not already working for the Rutherford County Sheriff's Department. Normally, you don't have to go if you don't, am I right on this? Unless you change departments, then you would have to have a new psychological.
All I know is you're required to have psychological evaluation.
Every time you change.
I had to do that when I ran for sheriff in 2006. I had to have psychological evaluation. And I had to show proof of that with the post commission, because I had been out of law enforcement
Right.
over 5 years,
You're right.
so my post certification was null and void.
Okay, so we will stay tuned tomorrow. I'll confer with Josh and Mr. Bobo immediately if anything happens with respect to a suspension
Well,
tomorrow. Thank you.
personally, I feel like, since we've got a commission meeting Thursday, I think that would be a quick enough time to, instead of worrying about trying to cram something in Wednesday.
And the Thursday, the 17th is when we meet commission.
I'm sorry.
So we got one more, we got Thursday night as budget.
That's, I'm a week off, sorry.
Okay.
So, when y'all was talking about it going to the full commission, which obviously 21 people need to vote on that, people would just apply to the full commission, or people would nominate, or come to the steering committee and let us weed out applications, or how do you see that happening?
I see the full commission deciding that.
Yeah, that's what I
Full
did.
commission, when it goes before the
So,
full commission, they'll decide how we're gonna
I
proceed.
guess you could, even here tonight, you could authorize me in consultation with our county attorney and our special attorney, if there is a suspension, to make a public announcement that the commission on such and such a date will be accepting applications and proof of proper qualifications only before some date certain that you could have. I don't know whether we could get this done before commission meeting or not, but we might could find out if we could do that in that time frame.
What were you gonna say, Robert?
I was gonna say, if we do a special call meeting and some people do qualify before the meeting, I think our agenda should be set up in such a way that we could elect someone at that meeting,
Yeah.
in addition to having the executive session.
All of this is going to take a little bit of time. It can't happen, in my mind, really quick. So there'll be a status quo situation out at the jail, in the sheriff's office for several weeks anyway, for a number of weeks.
Not necessarily.
It's, unless you do something, it stays just like it is.
I think we would owe the public to do something.
I understand, but I mean,
Yeah, I'm not.
whether you
I
can
know
do it in
you-
one day or
Well, I
one
would-
week, I don't know.
I'm okay with that. To Commissioner Stevens' point, I would make that motion, Mayor, that you want, but if that means we meet on that Tuesday before the commission meeting, just have that conversation around the sheriff, I think we need to do that, because people, obviously, I mean, I think I shared with Josh when he was walking in, the more this thing drags out and people are reading stuff from the trial, we're getting more phone calls daily, and I would I would make the motion to allow the mayor to work in consultation with Josh and with Mr. Bobo to do whatever they need to do, and if we can get a special called meeting before our regularly scheduled meeting on the 17th, that the commission would then handle the nominations of individuals that would submit their name for sheriff, and the county commission, if possible, would be able to select an interim sheriff that night at the special called meeting.
Second.
Now, I know I can try to rehash that for you, Becky.
Yeah,
because I know
rehash
it's a lot.
Well,
I make a motion that the mayor works in consultation with Mr. McCurry and Mr. Bobo to be able to provide us the information that we need, and if there is a decision tomorrow to suspend the sheriff, that the mayor puts out an announcement that there's going to be a special called meeting or opportunity for individuals to submit an application for sheriff. And the county commission is then called into a special session at a particular date that the mayor might identify in consultation with committee or defer to the mayor before our regular scheduled meeting. And the county commission at that time would have the opportunity to review those applications, and if they find a candidate that fits the bill, we would be able to nominate and vote on an interim sheriff that night at the special called meeting.
Okay, Becky, you want to make sure you got
It's a tongueful, it's a mouthful for sure.
You gotta get a fresh sheet of paper.
Yeah, yeah.
Mike, work with the county attorney's office and the special attorney, Bobo's office, to provide information needed and have a special called meeting before the commission to review applications, to announce, we're gonna have to work
No,
on this.
that's, yeah, we could work it, we would,
I think what you're saying is that the mayor would announce applications to a special call meeting.
Correct.
Who's having a special call meeting?
the county commission would have a special called meeting to accept applications for the vacant position of sheriff in the interim level.
Okay.
And that night at that meeting, the county commission would review those
At the special
applications.
meeting?
Yes, sir, at the special meeting. And if the county commission found a candidate that fits that position for sheriff, they would be able to nominate that person that night to fill in the interim role for sheriff, and not have to wait till the November 17th county commission meeting.
You're gonna nominate at the special called meeting?
If we have a candidate that the commission agrees upon after reviewing the applications that are submitted after the mayor's office announces that opportunity.
From those that are deemed to be
From those that
qualified.
fit, that meet all necessary qualifications.
So the full commission would meet prior to our meeting?
Yes, sir, a special called session,
Special session.
and the whole focus would be on filling that interim role for sheriff.
Does there need to be a deadline on when the applications need to be in? If you're
Yeah,
looking
there'll
at
have to be a
that?
deadline, and we'll have to say ABC, this is what you have to submit with your application.
Right.
Doesn't
To
say
be
it has to be
considered.
filed with the
That's
county
spelled
clerk's
out.
office.
Yeah.
And it needs to be filed with the
So it has
clerk's
to be filed
office.
by close of business today of our meeting.
Meeting.
I mean, you couldn't wait, somebody bringing their application in live at the meeting.
No, yeah, you
wouldn't
could,
have time to verify
yeah,
anything.
it would have, that's right, that's right.
Let me just throw this out. Would it be easier, as far as the first special call meeting, that it would be steering, that would go through the applications and then forward those to the full commission instead of the whole 21 body meeting, the special?
Well, I think that would, based on the qualifications, I think, Mr. Chairman, in my opinion, would already take care of the qualifications. So anybody that would already have to come to us, that we would have to review, we would hope would already have met the qualifications. I don't know why we would just look at them and then forward them. I would just rather bring it to the commission.
Well, I
body.
guess to ascertain if they qualify or not.
Well, but they would already have to qualify based on the current.
Giving it to the sheriff's, I mean, to give it to the mayor's office?
Yes, sir. And then they would already know who's already qualified through the
Okay.
clerk's office, and then they would just present to us only qualified applicants instead of the committee having to review it.
I wouldn't want to see it held down in no committee. Just move.
Yeah, I would just put it with all 21,
Okay, are there any other meetings on Tuesday night?
if that's what we decide on
We don't know,
next Tuesday.
what's Tuesday night?
He's talking about a week from tomorrow, the 15th.
Not normally, no, this couldn't be one.
Okay. Okay, so go ahead and read what you got, and we'll look for a second.
I've got a second.
I think
Are you
Commissioner
gonna
McAdoo
say-
seconded
you
it.
You got a second.
Okay, who raised their hand? Commissioner Pete.
Well, approximately 100,000 people or more, I think I read in the paper, probably 120 something plus thousand people are going to be voting in the presidential election. Already around
79,000.
79,000 have already voted.
Yeah.
So we're looking at 21 of us making a decision for this whole county. I don't want to rush into this. I understand the need, and I agree wholeheartedly that yes, if the sheriff is suspended, then we need to put someone in that place. However, I don't think it's smart for us to ram this through without giving these people a good vetting myself. And I personally would like to see this committee look at those people, make sure their qualifications there. And not only that, I personally don't want to appoint someone that is going to go ahead and turn around and run at the end of that term. You know, so there's other things other than those qualifications there that I personally want to look at, and that being one of them. The main one is, hey, are you going to turn around and run? You know, I'm not necessarily wanting to give somebody a leg up, that the 21 of us can decide, where you've got, you know, 120,000 plus people that normally make that decision. Not saying we'd make a better or worse decision, you know, my
Yeah.
guess is with the few number of us, we'd probably make a worse decision. And that's why I want to be careful with this.
And that looks, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I didn't want to interrupt. I want to try to answer him real quick.
Okay.
But Commissioner McAdoo.
Yeah,
go ahead.
he's waving his
Yes, sir,
hand.
that's fine.
Go ahead.
I'm not saying rush into it. All I'm saying is let the 21 commissioners replace this steering committee. In other words, you're not gonna hold this up in no 7-man committee. 21 commissioners will be acting as a steering committee
Committee of the whole.
as a whole. And we wouldn't make no hasty decision.
And that's why in that motion, Commissioner P, I put in there, if they desire that night to, they find a
That's right.
candidate. We don't have to do it that night, to your point about we certainly don't
We
want to
can
rush into
discuss
it.
it
And I
at
wouldn't
night
put that in
for
the
3
motion.
days if
Right,
we want to.
that would be fine too. I would not, you're right, everything you said was
Well,
right. You want to vet
We're
it.
not making no hasty
There's going to be
decision.
applications of people that I personally don't know.
Mhm.
But I know how to pick up the telephone and look at references. And I want references on these people just like if I was hiring them off the street. And one thing I do, I call those references, and I think that would be astute for us to do that. You know, agencies that they've worked for in the past, you know, what kind of references they've got. You know, this is a very big job, and we've just been discussing the qualifications. And I think since we may have the opportunity to put someone in there, I want to make sure it's the best someone we can find.
Well, basically, that night, that information will be given to 21 commissioners. If we decide to wait and let each one of the commissioners call an individual, I like each and every commissioner to get this information at one time. And if we want to delay or 2 or whatever, each commissioner would have that information at that time. It will not be held down in a committee.
You're going to have their references there. And
References
you're
and
gonna have them
whatnot,
there where I can
if
talk
we
to
have
them.
to decide to wait.
But I don't think this committee has ever held down an appointment.
Well, but
Held in a committee.
it'd be a time frame. Then that means the steering committee got to send it to the full commission.
Well, here it is now. You got the full commission meeting on Tuesday. If something happens.
Thursday, you could do it. No, the full commission don't meet Tuesday.
Well, we just made a motion that the full commission is gonna meet on Tuesday if he's
That
suspended
is
tomorrow.
if the decision come down to suspend.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but when would the steering committee meet?
Tuesday. I was Robert P. You know, the system right now basically we don't have a sheriff, he's in jail. Has it been running smoothly, Mr. Mayor, since he's been in jail? I mean, as much as possible.
Yes, more or less. it
Okay,
is,
more or
yes.
less. So if to get the best candidate, and what Commissioner P is saying, if it takes us 2-3 weeks or maybe a month to be able to vet and get the best candidate, I'm kind of on board with him.
Well, you still can get the best candidate, but the information will be given to 21 commissioners.
The
I can
information's
bring
gonna be
up-
given to 21
Yeah,
commissioners
but I can bring
regardless.
up another point. Why pass the public safety committee? Why don't I let them have a say-so in it? They'll probably be better off knowing the candidates than I would be on the steering committee. But 21 commissioners to get this information the same time and be able to move on it. Not one committee here, one committee there, one committee there. Doing all as one big committee, 21 commissioners.
Okay, let's go ahead and call the roll. Let's pop Mr. Johnson.
I'll give you an example. Worst case scenario, Commissioner Bill Jones, he wouldn't even qualify to run. He couldn't even qualify to be appointed because he's been out of law enforcement. And look at his experience. Commissioner Safety, FBI graduate, all this and everything, you know, and he couldn't qualify to be appointed.
Okay, Becky, please call the roll.
Let me read the motion.
Thank you.
The county mayor to work with the county attorneys and the special attorney to provide information needed for applicants and have a special called commission meeting to review the applications and be able to nominate a sheriff if a qualified candidate is determined.
That's correct.
And of course, that's only in the event.
That's only
that
in the event
he is
that
suspended.
the current sheriff is suspended. Right.
That's about so much you put in there.
And Vicky, there's no dates yet certain in what she said. We're gonna do our best to determine the quickest time we could meet.
Right.
But still give the people proper opportunity to get together and have the psychological examination if they have to have one, so they can prepare it, I mean, and other things.
Well, that's the problem I've got with voting on this right now, is the timetable. You know, I'm, like Mr. McAdoo, I think the 21 of us will make a better decision than the 7 of us do. I don't have a problem with that, but I have a problem with rushing this too fast. And that's why I can't support what you put out there. You know, I don't want you to think that I don't support appointing a sheriff if he is in fact
Well, I think
suspended.
let's sort of keep a target that whatever happens this process, certainly, if it happens tomorrow, the suspension, then by the actual commission meeting itself, we should have all of this together and make something happen if possible, okay?
But the motion is that we'd have a special call
It doesn't have-
commission meeting.
She doesn't have a time on it yet.
Well, that was my understanding, before this next commission meeting, the commission would meet.
But I know that sort of was discussed, but the way she's got it worded, the mayor, with consultation of our county attorney and Mr. Bobo, we'll look at all these qualifications, what they gotta do and when they might could get it done in a timely, reasonable timely amount. Then we'll call them special meeting. Maybe we don't need one, maybe it's just a week and 2 days from a week from Thursday night. That's no time, folks.
What I'm saying.
Do you want this
Because
motion
you
to
have to
say
give
and can
have to give a
have?
public notice.
I need to
of
give a
call
public
meeting.
notice,
Do you want
correct,
this
at
to
least
say
for
and can
some
have a
few days for
special
people
call
to at least
meeting?
know it's on the table for
Yeah,
them to
that's
apply.
fine. That's fine.
I think most people already have their ducks in a row.
They may.
Okay, go ahead, call the roll, please.
Okay. We did include and can have a special called commission meeting to review. Commissioner Johnson,
I'm gonna pass.
Commissioner McAdoo?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
No.
Commissioner Phillips?
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Turner?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
No.
4 yes.
Okay, motion carries. Any other business before the committee this evening? If not, we stand adjourned.